Hello and welcome back to the channel. In case you're wondering, where's the back bedroom pilot gone and who is this Flyer 10 guy? Well, don't worry, it's still me. I've changed the name of the channel, as I mentioned I was going to do in my end of year video in 2023, to reflect the fact that I haven't actually been simming out of my back bedroom for, well, over 2 years now. And it seemed a little bit disingenuous to keep pretending like I was the back bedroom pilot when I most definitely am not. Flyer 10 is just the ID that I use when I'm flying online. It is the name by which most of the flight sim community knows me, and it seemed like that would be a decent name for the channel going forward. So that's really the only major change, that and some branding. I'm not really changing the content or the mix of the content, or probably the frequency of videos, I'm afraid. As always, I will try to do more frequent videos than I have been able to recently, but I cannot make guarantees. So make sure you have subscribed and click the little bell icon if you do want to know when I get around to publishing a video. For the first video on the rebranded channel, I thought I would redo a flight that I did about 5 years ago with pretty much exactly this configuration. So from London City to Amsterdam Schiphol in the Phenom 100. Now that hasn't been possible in Microsoft Flight Sim until very recently, because there wasn't a Phenom 100 in MSFS. Now there is, courtesy of Cockspur. So this is by way of an intro to this aircraft, and we're going to fly it over to Amsterdam in roughly similar weather conditions than I did in my video 5 years ago. I may drop a few clips of that video in just for edification. Very different kind of experience. I thought compare and contrast the two different styles of sim would be useful. I mean, a lot of this equipment was still the same, but I had the 180-degree wraparound projector screen, which I no longer have. So visually it's quite a different experience. However, equally I didn't have Microsoft Flight Sim with its unarguably better scenery and terrain and certain other functions. So it's going to be interesting to kind of compare and contrast how much I enjoyed the last flight with how much I enjoy this flight, and I'll talk more about that as we go. Anyway, let's not spend all of our time yakking on the ground, so let's get into the cockpit of the aircraft. Now, if you're not familiar with the Phenom 100, this is what the cockpit looks like. It is pretty modern. It's, I say modern, I mean the aircraft's been around for quite a long time, but by cockpit design standards it's relatively modern. It's all glass cockpit, including the standby instruments, so no glass to be seen. Let me rephrase that. No steam to be seen is what I meant. It is a G1000 based aircraft, specifically G1000 Prodigy. The Prodigy is a little further forward than the NXI in terms of functionality, and working title have not implemented all of that, and I don't think those are things that Cockspur could add. So you will find that there are things on the checklist, for example, which don't apply to this aircraft because you just can't do them in the G1000 in the sim as it stands at the moment. And then in terms of the various control panels, got the light panel there, autopilot control, we've got the GCU, heating, ice protection, pressurization, air conditioning, fuel control, hydraulics, etc., and then the engine panel down there with ignition, start, stop, fire extinguishers, etc. And then coming in and looking around, we've got the electrical panel there, and also the oxygen control panel is down there. So that, apart from the throttle quadrant, which is pretty standard, is pretty much all you get. And I have mapped the majority of these things to hardware controls where I care about them. There are no air manager panels available for this aircraft at the moment. I am considering making some, because a couple of these would be useful to have. What I've had to do is map a bunch of features where you'd have to flip 3 or 4 different switches or controls to a single action on the hardware in the sim. So you'll see that when we come to engine start in particular. And before we do anything else, there's a couple of switches I need to remember to flip, which I have not as yet automated. So the pressurization mode to auto and the bleed air. Got to get it to both. There you go. Not always the easiest thing in the world to do that. Everything else should pretty much take care of itself. I have already popped out the instruments, so we're good with that. So let's get some power to the aircraft, and then we can get out of here. Okay, power is on, avionics master is on, the G1000 is alive. I'll dismiss the loading screen. You can see the G1000 in this display mode, which is what we'll see for most of the flight. AHRS is aligning, so we'll let it finish doing that. Now we've just about got enough fuel for this journey, so I don't need to refuel. And I'm not going to use GSX here anyway. I haven't even got it running. Doesn't really work for private jets. This is kind of a fully loaded flight in the sense that I'm using most of my add-ons. So I've obviously got SPAD-Next running because that automates a lot of my hardware. I've got Air Manager running for this panel down here, which is just the touch GCU. Probably won't need to use it, but it's good to have it in case you need it. I'm using the pop-out panel manager, of course. I'm using Pilot to ATC as the ATC for this flight, and we'll get into that in a little bit. And I've also got my base shaker on since I'm filming this during the day, and I won't be annoying my neighbours too much if I allow it to gently kick my arse as we go. Right, so I guess now we can get the ATC online and get our clearance. So I'm going to connect Pilot to ATC. We'll get a tone when it connects, and it will almost certainly start playing the ATIS. And I want to see whether the ATIS thinks it's got a weather forecast or not.
London City Information Foxtrot. 1320 Zulu winds are 229er at 9er knots gusting to 20 knots. Visibility 6 miles. 3,600 scattered. 4,500 scattered. Temperature 9, dew point 2. Current QNH is 9er87. Arriving and departing runway 27.
Okay, so 27 is what I'd expected. Let me just set the QNH, 987. Nice low pressure in London today. Now, I've imported the flight plan into Pilot to ATC, as you can see. I can let it give me my SID and start and approach assignments just naturally, but I want to make sure I know where we're going. So the SID is going to be runway 27, Aduka. We'll set that. The start. So in terms of destination runway, per the wind at the moment, runway 22 would be it. Now I know that Amsterdam doesn't actually operate exactly according to the wind. It has patterns of which runways it would use in sort of north-south operations. And it might well be that they're actually landing departing runway 27 in the real world. I am not certain about that, and I have no easy way to find out. So for now, I'm going to say runway 22 and the red fur arrival, and then the approach we will pick and put in nearer the time. I'm kind of hoping for the ILS because that makes the most sense. Sometimes it likes to give me vectors because it's vectoring me around the weather, so we will we'll see how that goes. Okay, so with all of that, I can now talk to ATC and pick up the clearance. Need to file my flight plan before I do that. Wait till that button goes green and we'll know it's filed. Okay, good. And as always with Pilot to ATC, I need to initiate the conversation, but then my co-pilot will take over doing most of that work. So, ground, flyer 10, ready to copy IFR clearance.
10 is cleared to Echo Hotel Alpha Mike. Climb via the Oduke 1 Alpha departure, with the Oduku transition, then as filed. Expect departure runway 27. Climb to 3,000 feet, via the departure. Expect higher clearances 1 minute after departure. Radar director on 133.45. Squawk 3443.
10 is cleared to Echo Hotel Alpha Mike. Climb via the Oduke 1 Alpha departure, with the Oduku transition, then as filed. Climb to 3,000 feet via the departure. Expect higher clearances 1 minute after departure. Radar director on 133.45. Squawk 3443.
Flyer 10 readback correct. QNH is 9er87. Let us know when you're ready to taxi.
QNH is 9er87 Flyer 10.
Okay, so all of that is set, and I've got the transponder set, I've got the initial altitude set. I'll deal with the flight director in a minute. I don't seem to be able to get the ground power to work on this aircraft. I don't really know why. I've got a switch that should, in theory, turn it on. Just doesn't seem to work. I mean, I'll push it, but I don't think it's done anything. We'll keep an eye on about 1 voltage. Once it goes below about 23.5, we're in danger of losing the avionics completely. So let's get the engine started fairly quickly. I'm going to run through the checklist, but this checklist is, well, not always relevant for flight simulation for obvious reasons, so I'll skip over the things that really aren't relevant. So cockpit and cabin safety inspection, so oxygen bottle valve pushed to restore, so we'll have the oxygen on. Electrical panel check, it's in the right place. Circuit breakers check, they're all good. Fuel pumps auto, they will be when I start the engines. Fuel transfer pushed out, yes it is. ELT armed, doesn't matter, doesn't work in this aircraft. Pusher cut out, pushed out, yes it is. Hydraulic pump to auto, yes it is. Gust lock pin, rudder gust lock, no. Heating panel check, it is fine. I don't really care about the aircon, we don't have any passengers. Ice protection panel check, yeah, ice protection's off and that's fine. Landing gear lever is down, pressurization panel is good. Air conditioning panel is good. Fire extinguisher panel is good. Start stop knobs are at stop, yes they are. Flap lever to 0, yes it is. Parking brakes set, it is now. Seats and belts don't need setting because I have no passengers. Okay, let's ask for start. Ground, flyer 10, request engine start.
10 engine start approved.
Good, good.
Engine start approved, flyer 10.
Okay, before start checklist. Winds and aircraft orientation are within start limits. Maintenance status good, VOR check log good, flight log good, lights as required. So beacon light on. Engine ignition to auto, that will happen at startup. Thrust levers to idle, they are. Batteries on, yes. GPU is required, can't actually get it to work yet. Parking brakes, chocks set and remove, yes. Circuit breakers check, good. Navigation database is current, yes. Oxygen mass flow and microphone check, sounds good to me. CVR test passed. Fuel quantity and balance check, yep, they're good. Oxygen pressure, verify, good currently. Test panel test, this doesn't work in the aircraft I don't think. Battery voltage is less than 24.3, so I'm going to do the shortcut steps. Doors are closed, battery voltage is alright but dropping. Signs are on as far as they need to be. Air conditioning auto, yeah it is. ADS AOA heater on as required in icing, doesn't require any right now. Right engine start, so I'm going to move the engine master 2 switch to on. That actually performs about 5 different operations in the cockpit, which I did through SPAD. I can talk about how I did that later. And then press this button, which will activate the starter, and we will get engine start. And I'll get one generator up and running, and then we'd have to worry too much about our battery status. Okay, engine is ignited, ITT climbing and rolling back, which is what we expect. N1 climbing should be at 27 at idle. All pressures and temps are in the green. Gen 1 off bus, that is correct, because I haven't cross-linked them and Gen 1 isn't started, so good. Alright, that's good start number 1. Let's continue. Altimeters set and cross-check, they are. Flight plan enter, it has been. Takeoff temp, ATR, enter and set, you can't do that on this G1000. LFE, enter and check, done automatically by the flight plan. Weather radar to standby. So for that we're going to need weather radar, and we need to go mode, standby, and then back. And then we'll go back to the navigation map view. Weights, enter and check, already done in the sim weight and balance screen. Takeoff speeds, acceleration, altitude, enter and check, can't do that in this G1000. Flight director, AFCS set. Flight director is on. Comms, nav, transponder set, they are. Taxi takeoff briefing complete. Do you feel briefed? I feel briefed. Immediately prior to start, doors closed, they are. Bat voltage check, it is okay. IFE off, no idea what that is. Signs outlet to ped belts, again no passengers. Air conditioning to auto, it is. ADS AOA heater on as required, this was all done in the previous part of the checklist. Engine start, start engine 2, already started, then 1. So as before, keep an eye on the engine instrumentation. That's engine start. ITT is topping out and rolling back. N1 rising, N2 good, other temps and pressures good, fuel flow is good. That's a good start on engine number 1. Okay, after start checklist, engine instruments check, they look good to me. GPU disconnect already is. EMA or emergency electrics check as required, not required. Flight controls free and correct, they are. Trim set and check, let's set the pitch trim. Just needs a tiny little adjustment up. Flap set for takeoff, let's go to flaps 1 for takeoff. Takeoff temp ATR verify, again, can't do it in the G1000 here. Ice protection as required, not currently required, but we will keep an eye out because it is a bit cold up there. Block out time record, it'll be about 1350 I imagine. And we're done until the before takeoff checklist. Alright then, so good start, and I think we are now ready for taxi. Ground, Flyer 10 ready to taxi.
Flyer 10
Pitot heat
taxi
on.
to runway 27, hold short runway 27.
Taxi lights on.
Taxi to runway 27, hold short runway 27, Flyer 10.
Alright then, parking brake is off, and let's have some power. It's just about 2 o'clock in the real world and in sim time, and it is a little bit dark. It's darker in the sim here than it is in the real world. It's actually quite bright outside for me, and I'm about 3 to 4 miles from the airport. However, of course, this is Meteo Blue, which is forecast data rather than, you know, minute to minute actual weather data, so it's obviously just decided that it's going to be a little bit more cloudy and dark than it really is, but it's pretty representative of the kind of weather we've got today. This, by the way, is Orbex's London City version 2, so we've got some nice extra touches there, but mostly it's about the physical changes to the airport that have happened in the last few years. Got some Polish Airlines traffic there, and I think that's Lufthansa. Oh no, so KLM City Hopper. Not sure if either of those still fly from London City, but FSLTL seems to think they do. So first big change is this large maintenance building here. It's not a hangar as such, but it is a maintenance building, and that has actually blocked off one of the previous gates, possibly 2 of the previous gates. But it doesn't matter because we've got new gates on the new apron. So normally we would have had to turn off onto the runway at the next turning and backtrack down the runway, and that was the end of the apron. But when we cross this thick black line that you'll see coming up in a minute, we will be on the new apron. So this was previously water. This whole thing was a concrete pontoon built over the dock on which the airport sits, and that gives us additional stands there. They've got an aircraft at those stands, and it also gives us this taxiway that runs all the way down the runway, so you no longer have to backtrack, although I have seen aircraft backtracking when other aircraft are on the taxiway, and basically that allows them to land and depart more aircraft than they used to be able to, and capacity expansion was really the main reason for all of these upgrades. You may have also seen the new control tower, which is a virtual control tower. We'll have a look at it in a minute when we're parked. So there are no ground controllers on site at the airport anymore. Instead, this is the old taxi loop, by the way, so we're back on the old apron. All of the ground control is done from the NAT Centre in Swanwick.
0.07. Have a great flight.
And those controllers sit in a room with very large screens all around them, giving them a 360 view of the airport, and they run that tower along with a few others. This is an increasingly common thing, particularly for small urban city airports. Just it makes the whole thing a lot easier, so that's also new. We can pop out and have a look at it over there. That structure with the sort of lattice of girders on the other side of the dock. Okay, so before takeoff checklist, Brakes check, yes, they are good currently. Takeoff configuration check, so I need heading set to 270, heading mode armed, and then VS mode armed at 1500 feet per minute for the initial climb out. Got to remember not to exceed 210 knots. Flight instruments check, yes, they look good. CAS messages check, there are none. Ice protection panel as required, it's fine. Lights set, that'll be immediately before takeoff. Record time off, that will be about 13:53. And then the takeoff procedure, says flight director off. I don't know why you turn the flight director off, but the rest of it is standard, so I'm just not going to go through that. Tower, Flyer 10, ready for takeoff.
Flyer 10, winds are 229 at 9 knots, gusts to 20 knots, cleared for takeoff, runway 27 squawk 3443.
Cleared for takeoff.
Get some interior lights on.
Squawking 3443, Flyer 10.
Already squawking. Let's enter the runway, strobe lights on. Now, most aircraft I see doing this, they actually don't turn with the line here. They go as far down here as they can, then do like a slow 90-degree turn. Doesn't really work for the Phenom, as you can see, because I massively overturned it. And I need to get out before that air traffic tries to run through me, which it absolutely will do. Okay, so landing lights on. Everything else looks good. Let's go to N1 target. Yep. Takeoff power set. And let's go. Quite a crosswind, so I'm putting quite a lot of rudder. And then, as always, oh dear, when the aircraft passes 80 knots, the direction of it all changes. So there's rotate. That's a sim thing, not a me thing, honest. And we're up, positive rate, gear up. Didn't get any call-outs like V1, etc. Your pilot to ATC doesn't do that for you, I don't think. There's the Excel Centre down there. Just back off the throttle a little bit so we don't exceed our speed. And we're going to go autopilot since we're over 600 feet. And then nav mode so we can make our first turn. There's the cable car and the dome down there, or the O2. Canary Wharf, lots of big buildings there. And then further into the city you can see the Shard and the Swiss Ray building, or the Gherkin so-called, and the cheese grater and the walkie-talkie and so on and so forth. If you're familiar with London, you'll know those things.
Flyer 10, contact Thames radar director on 133.45. Have a good afternoon.
Making our first turn on the sit.
3.45, Flyer 10.
We're heading to LCN02. I've got to make sure I don't bust my speed limit. Should have the Olympic Park down here somewhere. Not quite yet.
Flyer 10, good afternoon.
I think we've missed the Olympic Park there. Never mind. Should have... oh, it's right behind us. There it is. That's the Olympic Park at Stratford. First turn, LCN 02, max 210 knots. When I get to my next waypoint, I can speed up a bit, which will be good. And I've broken 210 knots. That happened very fast. It's one of the problems with this aircraft is when you reach altitude, it very quickly speeds up. I don't want to get a warning off ATC, so let's just pull the thrust right back and get back within my limit. There you go. Also very easy to let the speed bleed off to the point where You need your flaps again. Speaking of which, flaps up. So over there, by the river, we've got Barking, and nearer us we've got Ilford. And later on we'll have Dartford and the Dartford Bridge. We'll have a look at that in a minute. Bit cloudy, so we haven't got the best sightseeing. Got Chigwell over to the left and Loughton. Or Loughton, I'm not really sure how it's pronounced. But I don't really know them. I haven't spent a great deal of time in North London, as I'm a South London boy. If you're a London resident, you'll know the North and South divide is real. We're going to be coming up on Romford on our right shortly. Means we're resolutely in Essex, although Kent is just over the river. So Romford on the right down there. You can see the Dartford Bridge in the distance, hopefully. That's the Dartford crossing, bridge and tunnel. I like to point that one out on the way because it's always a good marker on the way in that you are approaching your initial fix. Right, turning at LCO4. So now I can speed up a bit. Not over 250 knots, of course. Over to the left and front there is Brentwood. Used to be famous for the Brentwood shopping centre, I believe. Was that Brent Cross? No, that's Brent Cross. Ignore me, I don't know what I'm talking about. And then on the right we will see Tilbury, Northfleet, Gravesend, etc. over by the river.
Have a good one.
Centre on 118.47, take care, flyer.
Turning at Oduku, so that is the SID basically done, and we'll get a climb instruction very shortly from centre. We're under the weather at the moment, but we'll be in it fairly soon.
At 3,000 feet.
Flyer 10, good afternoon. Climb to flight level 090.
There you go.
Climb to flight level 090.
Now normally I go flight level change, but I can't seem to change the FLC speed, so I'm going to VS it instead.
Level 090, flyer 10.
Also, for some reason that instruction always gets repeated. Seems to be to do with the voice, not with pilot to ATC itself. So climbing at 2,000 feet per minute, which means I can actually put in a little bit more power. And now we're on full climb power. Just going over Billericay now. Have a look. There's Billericay. I've been to Billericay, but it was a long time ago, so I can't really comment on how accurate that scenery is. And now the cloud is making it difficult to see things, but we've got Basildon down there. And Canvey Island. We flew over Canvey Island on our last trip out of London City, so you can see more of it there. Okay, I can see icing on the windows. Let's turn the de-icing on. Windshield here takes care of that fairly quickly. I've had to map literally all of the de-icing to a single switch, which is not ideal, but I need more physical switches for aircraft like this, or else I need air manager panels, which I don't have, so it's the best compromise I can come up with. It's not ideal, but it does work. We're going to have Southend off to our right, and Southend Airport. How much of that we'll be able to see, I do not know. Haven't flown out of there on the channel before, but I'm hoping that I will do sometime soon, because I've got some scenery for it, and it is pretty good. But it is down there somewhere, and where it's less cloudy, we can probably see Southend Pier as well. But we are heading out towards the North Sea via Clacton-on-Sea, which is pretty much dead ahead of us. Passing 7,000 feet now. We've gone past the London City transition altitude, so I'm going to dial up to 1013 now. I can't just go standard barrow. There doesn't appear to be a way to manually switch it in the aircraft, it
Flyer
would
10,
do it automatically after 18,000,
150.
which
Climb to flight level
of course is the
150,
universal transition in the
10.
US, but is not the case here in Europe. So I've gone to 1013, and then when we go over 18,000, then I'll go to proper standard barrow and do the same thing in reverse on the way down. Transition at Amsterdam is 3,000 feet, so we go all the way to the final approach on standard barrow. Right, we're getting above this these clouds at the moment. There are obviously more clouds above us. See the coast now. That's Southend Pier over there. You can just see projecting from the coast there, and the airport is down there, but it's under the clouds, so we can't really see it. Weather in Amsterdam is low cloud, but when I looked last there were no rain cells over it. However, as you can see, there is lots about. And looking on ForeFlight, I can see there's one that's potentially going to move in while we are travelling, so we'll have to see how we do on that front. Shouldn't hopefully affect any of our procedures though, so they should all stay the same. Right, passing 11,000 feet, taxi and landing lights can go off. The seat belts could come off if I had any passengers, but I don't. 216 knots indicated, still climbing at 2,000 feet per minute. Trading speed for altitude. We've got to get up to flight level 290, which will only be at very briefly. I'm quite tempted to change that and make 230 our final altitude, but I'm going to follow the plan as generated. But it means we do need to get up a little bit quicker. If necessary, I'll apply a bit more power. The aircraft doesn't like you to apply takeoff power for too long, but if it gives us a bit of a boost in terms of speed, that'll be fine. But you know, time to arrival is not critical. Okay, we've just passed Tovgu. Not really sure where Tovgu is in terms of places, but we're well past Southend now, and Clacton is our next major destination that's coming up in front of us. And then beyond Clacton, as we go out of the coast, we will see the ports of Felixstowe and Harwich. We'll have a look at those, and once we get there, I think I will let you skip until we actually start our arrival, because there really isn't much interesting going to happen between those 2 points.
Flight level 210.
And I want to try and keep this video a reasonable length and a single part. Right, cleared to 210. I believe I'll get cleared to 290 straight after that. Putting in some more power. So I'm currently in max thrust. The FADEC system will handle that. There's Felixstowe and Harwich ahead of us there. And you can see some ship traffic. That's all global AI ship traffic, I believe. Great add-on, well worth it. And it's free, so why not? Go to Flight Sim 2 and download it. It's a little bit big, takes quite a bit of disk space, but really doesn't seem to affect my FPS too much. I think I've got shipping dialed down to about 10-15%, so it's not a huge CPU drain. And I think it's well worth the investment. Okay, we've got 5.7 miles to Clacton. And you can see the ports down there. We'll get a good look at them as we go past. So, when I did this flight 5 years ago in the old sim, I think I took a very similar course, if not completely similar, all the way to Sugol, which is the start of the approach. I was flying later in the day. I did consider moving the time forward so that it would get dark, as it did in that previous flight, but to be honest, filming in the day without darkness in the room, it's not the same effect. And I can film at night, but then I'm using nighttime weather for a daytime flight, which is not ideal. So without being able to fly at the exact time that I simulated it at last time, which I really can't in terms of availability, there's not a huge amount that I can do about that, and that's fine. I'm not trying to exactly replicate the flight, just the origin, the destination, the aircraft type, and the route. And then on the other end, on that video, we landed on runway 18 left or 36? 36 left, I think we actually landed on.
Flyer 10,
and the winds don't allow for that today, so
Climb to flight level 290.
I'm going to go into, I suspect, 22, which I think is where P2ATC will direct me. And to be honest, I'm not that worried about precise operations at Schiphol. Hopefully beyond ATC, which like many people I am nervously awaiting, will sort all those problems for us, but we will see, and I will be looking at it on the channel as and when it releases. Okay, so given we've passed the coast, so passing the coast now, there's the port. I think it's time to let you skip ahead to when we are on our arrival and on our descent. So I will see you momentarily. Right, we have begun our descent and we're about to begin our arrival at the Redfer transition point. We need to be at 2,300 feet, and we are. We're down on the V-path, so the aircraft is controlling the descent. I'm just controlling the speed. There's our left turn coming in at Redfer. And from there we've got a relatively short haul through to Sugol, which is where the approach will start. In between times, I've been given my approach, which is to runway 22, and it is for the cleared for the ILS approach so far, which is what I wanted. So hopefully that won't change, and unless the weather is terrible, it should not. So there are a few extra bells and whistles with this aircraft that come from the new G1000. So these are not unique to the aircraft, but they're quite nice to have. So one of those, for example, over on the MFD here, is you now have the ability to press the charts button and get Navigraph charts. Now this depends on you having a Navigraph subscription, of course, and you have to validate it when you want to use it, but once it's set up and validated, then you can get the charts right here in the avionics. And my G1000 joystick control is not as good as it should be because it won't auto repeat. I can probably fix that. To be honest, I don't need this because I have full flight and Navigraph charts on the iPad, but it's nice to have as an option, and it will display whatever charts are relevant for the flight that you're on. You can obviously, this is the star chart, but you can look at the approach charts, and you can pick which of these you want. So we're going to go ILS or localise at runway 22, so I could do that, and we get the chart for that approach. These screens are a little bit small for that to be massively useful, in my opinion, but it is nice that it works. And I believe there's a way to get rid of this on the right, so you can do it full. Chart options, so you can like just show the header, or just the plan, or just the profile part, or minimums where they're there. You can do the fit width thing, you can rotate it, so there's all good ways of doing that. You can also look at the weather chart, you can look at the departures, you can look at the airport info, and that all works quite nicely. Also, for the same reason with Navigraph integration, if you select your mode here, you've got your IFR, VFR charts, that will actually show you the Navigraph charts. So I can see the Navigraph chart for my route. Now again, got it on the iPad, so I don't really need to worry about that, but it is a nice feature to have. I should go back to the nav map. And we'll turn right at Salute. Nothing special to do at that point. Losing a little bit of speed, passing 16,000 feet. I'm going to put a little bit more power in, just to hurry us along a little bit, but fairly soon we'll want to slow down, because we'll be under 10,000, so it needs to be 250 or less. But the aircraft is managing the descent for us. Hopefully should be a pretty straightforward flight on the avionics from now, but we will see. Okay, so I'll bring you back when we've actually begun our approach, which will be from Sugol, and we'll get into the approach and landing into Amsterdam when we can see the Dutch coast, which at the moment I cannot. So see you in a minute.
Flyer 10, you are 36 nautical miles west of Schiphol Airport. Cleared for the ILS approach to runway 22 at Schiphol with the Sugol transition contact approach on 131.15. Good afternoon.
Cleared for the ILS approach to runway 22 with the Sugol transition approach on 131.15. Flyer 10.
Alright, so we're cleared as expected to the ILS, and we are 3 miles from Sugol, at which point we'll pick up our approach, and I will switch to the approach mode. We're descending on the V path to 7,000 feet. Between 7 and 10 at Sugol, so we're already within the altitude range, but the step descent is to 7,000. There's the turn at Sugol, so I'm going to go activate approach.
131.15.
Contact approach on 131.15. Flyer 10.
And we're now on our approach path.
At flight level 070.
Flyer 10, good afternoon.
Set the altitude down to 0, and then let the vertical guidance guide the rest of the descent. So V-path will be coming in a little while. SPL, we've got 29 miles to go, we'll still be at 7,000, but then we start to descend fairly rapidly from there. So I need to be at 220 knots by SPL, but I'm already pretty much there, and I can afford to put on a bit more speed between now and then. Oh, there's the Dutch coast. You can actually see it. Better than the last time I tried this flight, when it was dark and completely cloudy, and by this point I was just in the cloud getting rained on. So slightly nicer weather today. Right, let's have a look at the checklist. So, descent checklist. Windshield heating on, it is. Pressurization panel, check. LFE, it's not displayed on here, but it looks fine to me. Icing conditions verify. Yeah, we do have icing, so the anti-ice is on. Landing speed set. Again, can't do that in this G1000. Altimeter set and cross check. Well, until we get 3,000 feet, we're going to be on standard. IFE off. Signs out there. Ped belts not relevant. Lights set. They are set as required. Fuel transfer pushed out. It is. Approach briefing complete. I feel briefed. and then we're down to before landing. I think we'll be on the ground in about 15 minutes or so. So I'll let you skip ahead to SPL, where we really start manoeuvring, and then we will watch the whole thing from there. So catch you in a minute. Okay, we're about to arrive at SPL. There is the airport ahead of us. In particular, the infamous 36 left, 18 right, with the very long taxi back to the terminal, which if you've arrived from the UK, you generally end up on that runway, which is not the most fun ever. Just bleeding off some speed, but I bled off a little bit too much, so bring us back to closer to 210, 215. And we've got 4 miles to SPL, so we'll make a turn fairly soon. We're going to go out in this direction and round in a loop and back to runway 22. Runway 22, which is, I believe, no, or is that 27? That's 27. Runway 22 is over there. I've done my descent checklist. Before landing checklist we don't need to get to just yet, but I am going to have the landing lights on, ready. And if I had passengers at this point, of course, they would be fully belted up. Right, V-path is coming in, so we'll continue our descent momentarily. And because it's the ILS, then there shouldn't be any mucking around on that front. You see an aircraft down there going into what I guess is 22. That'll be the path we're taking once we've been around the houses. Photogrammetry here in Amsterdam is a little bit, shall we say, chocolatey like London, in that it only really comes into detail when you get very close to it. It's a little bit irritating, but I know they're working on that for 2024, so fingers crossed for improvements. Alright, we've made our turn at SPL. We're now heading to PAM, 10.4 miles to PAM. And we're making a gentle descent on the vertical path. When we get to PAM, we'll make a left turn, AM 180. If I zoom in on the MFD, you can see the course we're going to be taking. So a big loop from PAM and then round onto the final approach. And then we'll switch to ILS and approach mode, and hopefully a nice smooth landing. So Amsterdam proper is behind us here. Can't really see much of it at the moment. And we won't see a great deal on the way in either, I don't think. Right, left turn at AM 180. And straight into another turn to AM 649, which will bring us more or less to bottom of descent and the final approach course. And then AM 650 will be fully on. Fairly soon we'll go over to the localizer for our ILS arrival. And now we're on the glide slope, so we're on our way down. There's the runway. I can just about see it. A little bit bright out there, so not the easiest thing in the world to see. So flaps 2, landing lights are already on. I will admit, for automation I do prefer the G3000. You get a lot more automation around things like approach and landing speeds. Obviously if you fly this aircraft you're supposed to know all that stuff. I can't say I know it off the back of my hand. I think I may have mixed my metaphor there, but anyway. Right, we have 6 miles to go. Doing 113 knots. Probably putting a little bit more power. And we can go flaps 3 now. So the VREF should be about 90 knots, I believe. See some traffic at the airport. They're either very, very close to the ground, or they just have their strobe lights on. Just under 5 miles. Get myself ready on the pedals. Taxi lights on in preparation. And we can go full flaps. So we've got almost a bang on headwind, so that's pretty good. Should be a smooth landing. And again, you can see the fairly nasty melted chocolate photogrammetry down there, but it is resolving as we get closer to it. See, it's good there, less good on the left, and considerably less good further out. Miles coming up, just about at 1,000 feet. I'm leaving the autopilot on to 300 feet because I'm lazy. Radar altimeter says 900 feet.
Flyer
700 feet, 2 miles.
206 at 18 knots, clear to land runway 22.
Yeah, I actually forgot to call in for that.
Clear to land runway 22, flyer 10.
You're supposed to call in when established on final, and the co-pilot will not do it for you automatically, so I should have done that, but I forgot. Thankfully it does remember, so that I am at least allowed to land. 1.5 miles, 500 feet. Is this a golf course? Is there a golf course by the airport? Looks like there might be. I've got a friend who's somewhat obsessed with golf courses in the sim. Right, 300 feet, autopilot off. Oh, it's a little bit bumpy, this. Happy's telling me I'm a little bit too high, so I need to keep the nose on a downward angle. Remember, of course, you're not aiming for the keys, you're aiming for the touchdown zone. Now it's telling me I'm way too high. We can go idle. Don't want to dive bomb the runway, of course. Which I'm sort of doing at the moment. Oops, no. Oh. Did I bounce? I think I bounced. Oh, that was not by any means the best landing I've ever done.
Exit runway when able.
That was pretty terrible, actually. Oh dear. Oh well, let's exit to the left here. This is the maintenance area though, so I guess it's not where I'm going to park. Fly 10, clear of active. Flaps
Flyer
up,
10,
landing
welcome
lights
to
off,
Schiphol
strobe lights
contact
off.
Ground on 121.55. Good day.
Ground on 121.55 Flyer 10.
Ground, fly 10, taxi to parking.
10, this is Schiphol ground on 121.56, go ahead.
Didn't recognise me. Flyer 10, request taxi to parking.
Flyer 10 taxi to general aviation parking via taxiways Golf, Golf 4, Golf 7, Lima, Echo 9, Echo 3, Bravo, Alpha 10, Alpha, Sierra 2, Quebec, hold short runway 04, and runway 18 left.
Taxi to general aviation parking via taxiways Golf.
Okay,
Golf 4,
well, I don't
Golf
know where it's
7,
getting that
Lima,
from, because I
Echo
can
9,
promise you
Echo 3, Bravo,
that is not where
Alpha
the general
10,
aviation
Alpha,
parking
Sierra
is.
2, Quebec, hold short runway 04, and runway 18 left.
And honestly, Pilot to ATC's ground handling leaves much to be desired. I did give it a full update from Make Runways, etc., but it really doesn't know where things are. So general aviation parking is actually just up here, and that is where private jets would park. So I'm going to go park there. Sorry, I'm going to disobey my instructions. I don't know why there's British Airways jet over there, but that wouldn't generally, unless it's there strictly for maintenance. That's K-apron. You wouldn't normally park passenger flights there. So yeah, general aviation is kind of here, which is why that building says general aviation. So let's turn in here. And I am going to go park near that FedEx plane. Wherever the nearest available parking space is. I don't think this is quite the way I should be taxiing, but never mind. Let's stop here at K43. And there we are. Parking brake is on. So after landing, flap 0, lights set, taxi light, nav light can go off. Landing time 14:51. Shutdown, thrust levers to idle. Parking brake set, it is. Signs outlet off. Heating panel check, ice protection panel check, start stop lamps to stop, they are. Block in time 14:51:36. Flight log complete. Okay, we are done. Welcome to Amsterdam, everybody. Parking over here is a new one for me. Again, I can't turn on the ground power here, so have all these systems off. Let's pop out for a minute. See where we've got to. So I'm assuming this is FSLTL traffic, not static, although it could be static. If we pop up and have a look around the airport, so you can see the main terminals are over there, but this is the GA terminal. This is where we should be. For some reason there's a British Airways plane there, which I don't think would necessarily be there in real life, but who knows. And there's a KLM over there, but yeah, this is a side of the airport you don't often see, but it is the correct parking. So I think they would have had me parking over in that direction, somewhere near the control tower, and that is definitely airliner land, not general aviation land. So again, let's just hope that Beyond ATC does a better job in terms of ground handling, and I might have been able to fudge that with GSX, but I don't have that running at the moment, so you get what you pays for. Alright folks, that'll do us for today, so I hope you enjoyed that. That was a nice little flight just to get us back into the habit of making videos, and a bit of a throwback to 5 years ago in terms of the destination, the aircraft. I will fly the Phenom 100 more on the channel. It's a nice aircraft. I do enjoy it. Hello, Editing Neil from the future here. I realised I'd meant to talk more about the Cockspur Phenom 100 as an aircraft than I actually did in this video. So I thought I'd add a short coda at the end to give you my thoughts about this particular aircraft. And to sum up, it's okay. I'm enjoying flying it. It's a reasonably good rendition of a modern bizjet. Whether it is the last word in type accuracy, I would say probably not, but then I don't think that's what Cockspur were going for. This isn't intended to be a study level aircraft. It is certainly better than the Carenado version of the Phenom 100, which I flew in prepared, and it definitely has more systems depth and better avionics than that aircraft did. But that said, there are clearly things on this aircraft that don't function exactly as they would do in real life. Not to mention that the avionics will never be completely the same, because the real aircraft runs the Prodigy flight deck, which is considerably different than the Garmin G1000 NXI, and in particular it's going to have customizations for the aircraft type, which would be relatively hard to do on top of the NXI, and would probably have made this a considerably more expensive product. And I just don't think that's the market that Cockspur is aiming for. That, to me, is completely fine. So I like the aircraft. I'm enjoying flying it. I'm definitely going to fly it more in my private life and on the channel. And if you are in the market for a bizjet and you like the Embraer Phenom type, it's definitely worth your while checking it out and seeing whether or not it's something that you think you would like to add to your stable. And if so, I imagine you probably won't regret it. If not, there are plenty of other bizjets out there for Microsoft Flight Sim that you could be looking at. So those are my thoughts. Take them for what you will. And now let's resume your regularly scheduled programming. And I've got plenty of other aircraft coming up, none of which are particularly new. The FSR 500 I've got running in my cockpit, the Vision Jet and the H-Jet I've had for ages but haven't showcased on the channel, so there'll be content for all of those. And then we're also going to get into things like SPAD Next and how to do stream decks from SPAD Next. And in particular, when we're getting onto the building side of the sim, I've got a series of videos planned around creating backlit panels, and I've been filming content for that for quite a while now whilst I'm working on that. And there's going to be a several video series on setting up and using a laser cutter, a Chinese K40 laser cutter, to make and prepare your own panels, as well as other methods of doing it, which I'll look at. But that's what I'm personally working on at the moment, and I'm documenting it as I go. But it's a slow process because there's lots and lots of modifications to make and not a huge amount of time for me to do it in. So pretty much every weekend I film some more stuff, and then when there's enough to release, I'll put out the first episode, and when I know I can keep it on a regular cadence and release more episodes every week or so in that series, then I will start with that series. So look out for that. All of which means, if you are not subscribed to the channel, I would recommend and ask if you would subscribe. Obviously it helps the channel, but also it means that you will know when I publish a video, provided that you hit the little bell icon. And if you do, then when the next video comes out, you will be amongst the very first to know. If you like the video, it would help if you click the like button. If you didn't like it, it would help me if you click the dislike button so I know. And if you've got any questions or comments, leave them in the comments below. I try to answer all questions and comments as quickly as I can. Otherwise, I will say thank you for your time, thank you for watching, thank you for joining Flyer10 as part of this new era for the channel, and I look forward to seeing you back on the channel very soon.